Welcome to Reach, your platform to connect with other executive assistants and acquire game-changing knowledge and perspective. Reach is designed to inspire your workday, guide you through pivotal moments in your career, and transform you into the executive assistant you've always wanted to be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Reach. This is founder and CEO of Maven Recruiting Group, Jessica Vann. And today, I am especially excited because after 6 years and 5.5 seasons, I can't believe that I get to say that today is officially our 100th episode of Reach. And we are in the mood to celebrate. So we have welcomed Amy Crumley to the program. She's going to be my guest host for today. And we thought we'd do something a little bit different, flip the script a little bit, and offer something a little bit nuanced to really commemorate the occasion. So for us, as I think back on these last 6 years, 5.5 seasons, it's really quite staggering / intimidating / overwhelming to think about the amount of time and thought and discussion and man hours and editing hours and recording hours and intellect and all of the horsepower, sourcing horsepower that's gone into attracting and curating the amazing roster of guests that we've been so honored to have on our program. And I thought it would be fun to take a moment to just kind of flip things. And instead of me being the interviewer, we've invited Amy to come on the program to interview me and talk a little bit about the origin of Reach, what's gone on behind the scenes in terms of creating this podcast and bringing it to life. And also talk about who has been a key part of this journey as far as the key members of our team who have been here from the very beginning, working diligently behind the scenes to bring all of this to fruition. And I'm just really excited and a bit reflective, thinking about what the legacy of this show has brought to the EA community. And I will say, going into this, now having done this for 6 years, this truly is one of my proudest professional accomplishments and I think professional legacies, particularly for the EA community. So I thought it'd be great to do a little retrospective. So Amy has an awesome background. First of all, she is, of course, an executive assistant, because how could she not be if she's going to be on this program for this 100th episode? So Amy has supported the CEO of Samba TV for over a decade. But she's also a writer. She's also a marketer. She has all of these really interesting, nuanced skill sets that we're excited to have her co-host today. Also, she's been a longtime Reach fan and follower and has quite a bit of personal interaction and experience with our program. So if you're like me, you've probably listened to countless of these episodes. You've learned, you've laughed, maybe you've even cried a little bit. So we're just really excited to look back. And Amy, I'll let you introduce yourself. And again, thank you for being my host.
Thank you, Jessica. This is surreal, to say the least. Surreal. My name is Amy Crumley. I am the Senior Executive Assistant at Samba TV. We have worked together for over a decade now, I think since 2014. And that year is a little blurry, and I kind of like to just keep it blurry. I love that we're not really sure when I actually started. And so I just don't even research it. We just go with it, and we joke about it all the time. We are in a pivotal moment for executive assistants. As always, our career is constantly evolving, and Jessica Vann has been a huge force multiplier in our career. It's been incredible for me. You got me through the pandemic. You got me through it. I thought I was going to be out of a job. I thought tech was going away. I didn't know what was happening. And Reach, I would listen to your podcast every day, sometimes more than one, sometimes multiple times. And it got me through that time. In those moments when you feel completely lost in your job, and you listen to these people who have been there before, you listen to Jessica interview them, and it gives you hope. And then I also think there's this quality of reach that speaks to me so much. For example, listening to the chief of staff and executive assistant to Oprah or Michelle Obama or a lot of these other incredible people you've had on the show, it makes it real. And I think it always gives me hope when I hear them talk because I feel like I could do that too, in a sense. Whenever you think about it outside of them and you've never heard them speak and you've never really researched who those executive assistants are, and then you actually hear them talk and you realize they're real people and you bring that out in them when you're interviewing them, it's amazing. And it's always given me hope. I always feel like I've been small potatoes. I've been in the small business world and startup world and things like that. I've never supported a president or a POTUS, but
A
I
POTUS.
think that, yeah, but I think that it's just been an incredible force in my life. And I hope that other executive assistants feel the same way. So I'm honored to be here. I'm not a podcast host, so let's see how this goes.
You
I
know
love
what,
talking
Amy?
though.
6 years ago, neither
So
was I. So we are, that's the perfect boat to be in. Yeah.
okay, wonderful.
Yeah. It's great.
You might have to work with me a little bit here too. I'm also a talker, so I'm going to work on my listening skills today. And we are going to welcome you, Jessica, to your own show. Jessica Vann, welcome to Reach. This is your 100th episode. How does that
Yes.
make you feel? This is your 100th
Um,
episode, 6 years.
6 years. It makes me feel like where does the time go? So a little bit of that kind of feeling. It really makes me feel super proud. I feel like we've delivered a value, and I feel like it's sort of this unexpected community has bloomed, as a result. And the fact that it's been a catalyst for connection on so many levels for me individually, for our team, and our professions, for the ability to meet people like yourself and people like, Libby Moore, who you mentioned, or China Clayton, who you
Hmm.
mentioned. I mean, just the way that it's enabled these incredible, brilliant experts, humans, to come to the forefront and to share with us. I never quite anticipated that we would get to a point where we were attracting that level of authority figure. And Reach has gone through a lot of iterations, a lot of evolutions, and we've always really tried to hold a bar, for people that we felt would really bring something to the discussion. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing that I feel is just really proud, and to know that it's accomplished what we hoped it would, which was giving people, like you said, like peace of mind, reassurance, affirmation that they have a place, skills that they needed to cultivate, inspiration that they needed to find, like all of these things I've heard from listeners, in the way that they experience it is in different ways. But yeah, I guess proud, and also like motivated, like I'm still motivated to do this and to keep creating content. And that also kind of surprises me, because 6 years is a long
Hmm.
time.
6 years is a long time, and I turned to Reach when AI started really emerging into our careers. I was really scared. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, executive assistants aren't going to be around anymore. And it was just quite the opposite. And you had a couple episodes on it already that were so enlightening and incredible. And I think that the, when you think about when Reach began, which is where I think we should go next in the conversation, who knew even 6 years ago that we would be here today using AI as much as we have been, so your podcast has been through this huge evolution in our career and what's happened with executive assistants. And so I am curious from the very beginning, how did this get started? Why did you want to do a podcast? You're very successful, and you had this incredible staffing company and these incredible values on what you wanted to deliver, especially to the tech world, and to other like venture capitalists and things like that. It's pretty incredible. But why are we here? Why did you do this
Yeah.
6 years ago?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. You, by the way, are super good at this, Amy. Just want to slow. Okay. Well, first of all, before I answer that, I want to say something real quick about the AI point that you make,
Let's
because
go
I
there.
think
Let's go
that's
there.
really important in terms of, and again, we've always envisioned this program as a call and response, like a give and take. Please give us input, because the things that we feature and the things that we talk about are largely driven through our own internal discussions as a team. And there's been two people who've helped me produce this podcast over the years. The first one being Haley Garrison, who
Mhm.
I hope will make a cameo in this episode. She and I were the two that really got it off the ground. And then Haley has since transitioned out of Maven after, I think, 6 amazing years. And her successor, Shay, has taken over the reins. And so now Shay's running the program and helping to curate content and find amazing guests and think about, subjects and topics to feature. But my point in saying that is that, for us, like, we try to talk about things that we believe are really timely and really relevant. And I think that, as executive assistants, as you mentioned, like, there was, and still for some is, a tremendous amount of kind of fear mongering around what's going to happen. Am I going to be, completely deemed irrelevant or whatever? And so really trying to tap into the knowledge that we think is really vital and really timely has been a big priority for the program. And I'm sure there will be other things that will surface. And, if you look back at the canon of episodes that we've done, I mean, some of them are really around kind of EQ skills. Some of them are around more hard skills. Some of them are more around kind of tooling and what sorts of key strategic tooling do you need to have? What kind of programs do you need to know? How do you plan board meetings, right? Understanding AI. So we have a lot of things that we've really tried to think about are vital to an EA's toolkit. But sometimes that thing that's most vital is just peace of mind, right? Because I think very little good comes of being in an absolute free fall panic mode. So if we can also offer reassurance and resources that you feel like you're tackling the unknown and not just being afraid of it, that was kind of a goal. But so if I think about it, I was about 10 years into owning and operating Maven Recruiting Group. And a lot of the same issues come up, right? You kind of get to see that there's a lot of the same challenges. There's a lot of the same inherent kind of like, almost I want to say insecurities that executive assistants would often share with us, because interviewing is a very, very, very vulnerable thing. I mean, we go there with people. Like, we know everything about their lives, their marriages, their situation. I mean, all of it, right? And so I think people reveal a lot. And a lot of what kept coming up is things around feeling kind of minimized in their role, not feeling like they could really be impactful, not feeling like they were really making a difference, not feeling heard, not knowing how to get through, not knowing how to relate to their executive, struggling with communication, struggling with kind of, where do I go with this? What else is available to me? And these were just really big picture themes that kept coming up. The number of times I've heard EAs go, well, I'm just an assistant. Why would they listen to me? And I hated that. I was like, okay, hold on. Like, first bit of interview coaching is you just need to expunge the word just from when you answer that statement. I'm an assistant. Sounds much better than I'm just an assistant, right? And so it was like this whole idea of how do we help people realize their tremendous value? That was part one. And then to be able to do that, because we were doing that, but we were doing it on a very incremental level, right? It was like one-on-one in these interview situations or coaching situations with candidates. But how could we do that and do that at scale? How could we turn up the dial and really amplify that? And, we talked about a lot of different things. And by the way, we tried different things before we tried Reach. We tried like meetups, and we tried having town halls and social things and getting people together. And, I think we had a couple of like semi-decent turnouts, maybe 30, 40 people, but that's a very different thing, right? And being able to create a program that's published, that's globally accessible to anybody that has internet, right? So for us, it was a desire to amplify that lesson and that teaching. And then also like to help the executives too, because a lot of the executives were having similar conversations of them not really understanding how to partner, what's fundamental to a partnership, how to extract the most value. So we've also tried to, enlighten the other side of the equation, which is the client side, and really, how to support a vital relationship.
I think that's an incredible thing to note where this doesn't even really have to just be for executive assistants. You can also, like this sounds, might be a horrible metaphor, but training a dog, you have to train the owner of the dog just as much as you have to train the dog. And I think that is, like I said, might be a terrible metaphor to compare it to, but seriously, the executives need to be educated on how to use their assistants to leverage their daily operations on a regular basis. And sometimes it ebbs and flows. But when the top executives like the CEO of Okta and his assistant, whose name is not coming to my mind right now.
Tanya
Tanya
Yes.
Benvenuto.
Yes.
She's amazing. I should just listen to her every morning.
Every day. Yeah.
Every day.
She is a whole mantra.
I need her voice in my ear. She gives me a strength I never knew I had. And it is so inspiring. And I think that the way that she worked with her CEO is exactly what you were just discussing in terms of showing your executive on how to leverage their daily operations using their assistant properly. And then also having those tools to do that.
Here's a clip from my conversation with the one and only indomitable 3-time Reach guest, Tanya Benvenuto, Senior Vice President of Executive Operations at Okta, talking about the power of owning your career.
Form a relationship with the CEO, like the relationships that I've had in the past with other executives that I've worked with. He was just different. And so it took a few months. And once I started to really openly communicate with him and share what I could do to elevate him and save him time, what experience I had, what I was capable of, slowly he started allowing me to take on more and more. Once he saw what I was capable of doing, he just really opened the floodgates and just gave me everything. But it took him some time to trust me, and I had to really earn it. And something about me, as you know, I don't just go into a job and just work 40 hours and do the basics. I'm always going to look for what I can do better, more, what can I change? How can I work smarter, not harder? How can I up level the people around me? And so I really thought to myself early on, I'm going to turn this into something that's going to work in my favor as well. And so that's what I did. I worked really hard and I up-leveled the team. I never stopped. Once Todd, our CEO, started to really delegate to me, he also gave me a seat at the table, which was really important. He gave me the valuable information that I needed in order to execute, and in a timely manner. And so that was really helpful. Early on, he knew that that was the right decision to allow me access to his inbox, to have me in all of the executive meetings. I mean, how am I supposed to prioritize if I don't understand the business needs? And so he quickly bought into that. It wasn't without me having to convince him, though. I had to sit down with him and tell him what I was capable of and how I could make him better, but I was going to need some things from him in return. So he bought in and decided to, like I said, give me a seat at the table. And it was at that moment that I really just felt like I was now a builder and an owner, and I was part of this company, and I was valuable, and my work really mattered. And he made that very clear to me as well.
I also had seen that I think you're at 300,000 listeners. There's some stats out there about reach that are pretty incredible.
I think
I
it's
would, I
like
want to be accurate,
three.
but
Shay would be the best to say, but I want to say it's like 360,000 downloads, something like that. So listeners, yeah.
360,000 downloads,
Uh-huh.
360,000. I mean, that's a reach right there, pun intended, that probably didn't hit those 30 or 40 person gatherings that you had in San Francisco,
Right.
right? And then to make it, put it on a global scale too, there's executive assistants all over the world. I know, interestingly enough, Australia is really big on executive assistants, and it's just, you don't realize that sometimes you're stuck in your own little bubble. So yeah, to be able to get those voices heard, those skill sets, and then like you were saying with AI, let's not be scared of it. Let's use it. Let's leverage that and make our days better because of it, not be scared of it. There's so much nuance that comes with our positions that
Yeah.
I think it's just a wonderful thing to have a program like this that can speak to so many people.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you pointed out with mentioning Tanya, I mean, I think the idea is, and she just really typifies this so well. I mean, she is like the personification of this, of really thinking of yourself not in a reductive way, but in an expansive way, and really seeing your potential as limitless, and her career beautifully exemplifies that philosophy.
Incredible.
Here's a clip from my conversation with the one and only indomitable 3-time Reach guest Tanya Benvenuto, Senior Vice President of Executive Operations at Okta, talking about the power of owning your career.
And the last thing would be advocate for yourself, know your worth.
Mm-hmm.
No one could ever tell me that I wasn't worth everything that I am. And Todd actually appreciates it about me. He likes that I can speak up for myself and articulate what it is that I want and deserve and all of the things that I can do. And so I think that that's really important for people as they navigate their career. Just remember to always show up properly and to work really hard and to advocate for yourself, and never just let people kind of treat you how they want to treat you, but stand on your own and know that you are valuable. And as long as you are respectful, you can always speak up for yourself.
She's a phenomenon, but
She really is. And
she really
I don't
is,
even know if like it's one of those things where I never see myself at her level in a million years, but just hearing her and hearing you two talk in the multiple episodes that she's been on is inspiring. I may never be Tanya, and that's okay. But that I have Tanya in my ear on those days that I need her to get through my day and inspire me to put my foot down and say, this is what needs to get done is a beautiful thing.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point, is not everybody is going to support Jeff Bezos. Not everybody that listens to our program is going to go on to support Michelle Obama. But you can listen to what these individuals have to offer. And even if you take just one small nugget of wisdom or one small moment in the conversation, you go, gosh, that's a really good approach. Or I really like their framing on this. And you just take that, right? And you walk with that and see where that takes you. There's so many nuggets and wisdoms and things too that I've been able to incorporate into my work. I'm not an executive assistant, but there's so much intelligence captured in these 100 episodes. And I think if anything stands out, it's just how incredibly intelligent and impressive our speakers, our guests are, right? The intelligence and the capability that is exhibited by the executive assistant community is phenomenal, right?
It's mind-boggling.
It is. I mean, these are people these are paid speaker level people, for sure. And in some cases they are. I mean, China Clayton, Ann Hyatt.
Oh yeah.
Libby Moore. I mean, they travel the world giving talks. Yeah, for sure. Up next, a clip from my conversation with the one and only Ann Hyatt, former executive assistant to Jeff Bezos and chief of staff to Eric Schmidt of Google.
Here's the top 3. Would you reconsider any of these? And he looked at me and was like offended. And he was like, no. He said, I only hire people I have to hold back, not push forward. And that is my hiring mantra ever since.
Wow.
That is the difference. As a leader, it's so exhausting to have to push that rock up a hill every day, let alone pull your team up with you. So you need people who are so ambitious, so eager, so passionate and mission aligned that you spend your energy channeling their best ideas rather than pulling ideas out of them.
Now let's take a listen to a snippet from my conversation with Libby Moore, former chief of staff to Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah expanded my world and my heart and my mind so much. And that is where we connected. Even in our interview that we did in New York, the first time we met and had an interview, she recognized something in me and I recognized something in her. And it was a spiritual, energetic connection. 1000%. We saw it, we felt it. And I felt in that interview, it was clenched. Like I felt it. I felt like, oh, I see you. And she saw me.
I think that this position, being an executive assistant, is it's such a strange career. A lot of people use it as a stepping stone, right? Especially nowadays into the chief of staff role. But when you listen to a podcast like Reach, I think sometimes it gives you hope that it's okay to be a career executive assistant, and not only just to be a career executive assistant, but then you learn all these different avenues and ways to do your job and where you can shine the most and where other people have had bad days and good days. And I also love when you point out people making mistakes, because we're human and it happens. And like hearing about Obama, I can't remember if it was Obama or Michelle Obama who their executive assistant had sent them out at the wrong time.
And now here's a clip from our episode with China Clayton, former executive assistant to Michelle Obama.
I was like maybe 7 months into the job and I sent Mrs. Obama out on stage too early for a speech. And when I tell you, like, I died in that moment, like I was pushing up the daisies in my mind, like career over, like when she comes off stage, this is it, just get ready, pack your stuff, let's go. But honestly, she handled it like a champ. Right. And I was just like, okay, after this event, how am I going to handle this? And so what I decided was I'm going to address it head on. And so once we got into the limo, I owned my mistake. And I was just like, I'm not going to act as if it didn't happen or wait for her to question it. I apologized immediately and I told her how I plan to ensure that it didn't happen again, and she accepted that and she offered some advice. And trust me, it never happened again.
I would be devastated. And to know, sometimes we make mistakes. And I think when those moments happen as an executive assistant, you're like, I'm done. I just am done. I am not doing this anymore. And sometimes listen to those podcasts, listen to those interviews. It really just pushes you over that hump. And when you stick with it and you keep showing up, amazing and beautiful things can happen in this career.
Yeah.
And even on those bad days after you sent out the president at the wrong time.
Right. I think Taylor DeLorenzo talks about that in her episode. She talks about, I forget what exactly her mistake was. Yeah, and she supported the CEO of Twitter, and now she's supporting the CEO of the Farmer's Dog. So not a bad career trajectory.
Yeah,
but,
she's doing fine.
She's doing fine. But I think that the point that she made in her episode was not that you will make mistakes. That's an inevitable. That's a given. But it's how you own the mistake in the moment that distinguishes you and distinguishes your career. And I think that's the very powerful lesson in what she has to say, because this is not about the pursuit of perfection. That's an impossibility. Yeah. But it's slowing down, it's being mindful, it's checking things. And she did. She said, she learned to do that and to be more mindful and more kind of just slow down, right? But again, it's how do you own those moments? Here's a segment from our episode with Taylor DeLorenzo, former executive assistant to the CEO of Twitter and current EA to the CEO of Farmer's Dog, talking about the power of owning your mistakes.
Actually, this happened later on in my role at Shake Shack, but I totally botched dates. My boss was supposed to be in Japan for a Shack opening, and the plan was he was going to go there, and then he was going to fly to San Francisco for a board meeting he had, an external board meeting he had. And so like the whole team, tons of press and all these plans were made around his trip to Japan, and like everything was set up. The opening was kind of fashioned around his availability and all this stuff. And then the week before, he's leaving like Tuesday, and this is Friday night. He realized, which is even worse, that I got the dates wrong for the board meeting. And I was horrified. And again, wonderful man, like gave me more grace than I deserved. But it was like, I feel the terror that right now, because it was just like, you can't miss stuff like that. And that's just, I think those are the worst mistakes, where they're like, this is so dumb. Like, I shouldn't have missed that. That's, and basically what had happened is like, they gave us the set of dates for, whatever it was, 2019 and 2018 side by side. And I put the wrong dates basically for the board meeting for the next year, yada, yada. But it just was like, careless mistakes are almost the worst, because like everybody knows better. And I think that's, if I later on, I know you're going to ask me about, piece of advice, but this is one that I still need to be reminded, and that my mentor always tells me, which is just slow down and like and especially with big trips and that sort of stuff, like just there's always a lot on our plates, and like there's always more you can do. But I still am upset that this happened.
No, I can hear it.
And again, my boss was like, then I called our guy who was the head of international Shacks at the time, and like, he was wonderful. And this is back to the relationship point. Like, I have relationships with everybody, and I called him and I was like, I messed up. Like, what do we do? And so that he was, again, Michael Clark, he came in and shifted some stuff, and Randy had it turned out to be really tough for Randy, because obviously it was just a condensed schedule, and then he had to go show up at a 2-day board meeting, and we made it work, but it wasn't great for sure. And that's the stuff that, like, first of all, you absolutely immediately own it. Like, you're like, I totally, there's no, and even if it's only like half your fault, you eat it, because like, there's nothing, the response that your exec or whoever is going to be the most pissed at is if you immediately try to say it's not your fault. Like, that's not helping any situation.
Yeah, those episodes are some that still speak to me today. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get back to history here a little bit. The 6 years that you've been doing this have been, I guess, very fast. It probably seems like it goes by in a flash, but I am curious what for you feels different from the beginning to the middle to now. What do you feel more comfortable sitting behind the mic right now speaking, or were you nervous the first time? What were the early days like? Were they just willy-nilly, or was it very structured and no, we're going to be a pro from the beginning? Or was it,
there was so much to know. There was so much to do. I really credit Haley Garrison with that, because neither of us had any experience with any of this. It was just an idea. And I remember our team getting together. At the time, we were in an office in downtown San Francisco. It was a beautiful space, designed by a very good friend of mine named Michael Guidry, who also, by the way, did an episode on Reach about what to think about and how to design a home office. So that's a good listen too, by the way. I think it was one of the earlier seasons. And now, a moment from our episode with interior designer and close personal friend, Michael Guidry, talking about what goes into creating the perfect home office environment.
Again, it goes back to this. Is this space a place that the executive assistant wants to be, to do their work? So, it has to be comfortable. It has to function. Functionality, I think, is very, really, really important. I'll refer to the executive assistant as my client. I would really need to discuss with the client, what is it exactly that you do? Once I hear what they do, then I can look at the space and say, okay, you know what? You have a lot of tools and a lot of things that you need. And I don't know if you want to see all that at the same time. So how about this? How about we create a separate space for just all those tools, and then we'll make it very accessible for you so that you can get up and you can get them, bring them to the moment when you need them. And when you don't no longer need them, you can put them away. But let's try to keep the space comfortable for your eyes and free of clutter so that you can focus on the task at hand. How's that?
At the time we were in this office and we had these glass walls, and a couple of us got together and we just said, you know, what do we want to call this thing? Like what are we going for? What's the objective here? And we were all really clear that we wanted this to be something that would elevate people, that would lift them, that would inspire. We wanted to offer them a dose of confidence, a dose of inspiration for their day, a new source of wisdom or a new idea that they could try out, right? Something that to keep them engaged and motivated. And so the idea was really around ascension and progress. And so we were kind of iterating around that. And then we thought it'd be kind of fun if we somehow had EA incorporated into the word. So as we were thinking about this sort of forward momentum and aspiring and onward and blah, and then we were like, reach. And then of course it had the EA in the word.
Oh, it's
so
perfect.
We thought that was real cute. And then it was like, okay, now we have to come up with a graphic. And now, then we had to do some crazy like IP, whatever, make sure that nobody else had a podcast with the word reach in it for la-di-da reasons. And so we weren't going to get saddled with a lawsuit. So that was part of the process. And then we had to figure out, you know, again, like the moniker. And then we hired a composer to do a little jingle in the beginning. And I was really into salsa dancing. And so I wanted it to sound like it had a little
We need to talk about that.
So
we need to talk about that.
Really adamant that it had to have like a little pep to it. And of course, because you can't just sample music, right? I mean, there's intellectual property and all that. So we had to come up with something proprietary. And then it was like, okay, now where are we going to record this thing? And lo and behold, we found Mario, who has been with us for every single one of these 100 episodes. And he's been our sound engineer. And we used to record in person, but now we're doing it virtually for the most part. So all of these things that had to be figured out. And then it was like, well, how do you host it? What kind of a platform do you put it on? How do you market it? Just all of these considerations that went into it. And it was a big unlock figuring out all of the mechanics of actually getting a program going. I will say I did very little of that. The only part that I really did was talking about topics and brainstorming ideas and things that I'd like to talk about and guess that, you know, I think would be a good person to highlight that and feature. And then, of course, doing the interviews and coming up with the outlines and things like that. But everything else, I did not figure out those things. Those were everybody else working on those things.
But I love that you're sharing that. There might be an executive assistant out there that wants to do a podcast, because there are quite a few of them. And some of them are okay. I think that I've explored at least half a dozen, maybe. But hearing these stories, there might be someone out there that wants to maybe take another niche than Reach has taken and do something different with it, or you never know. So I think that's a beautiful thing to share.
Well, if anybody wants to reach out to Haley for consulting ideas, how to launch a podcast from start to finish, I'm sure she would advise. But yeah, it was an undertaking for sure.
Do you have any standout moments in the past 6 years, standout episodes? You're not sleeping, you wake up at 3:00 in the morning, you think about that one thing and it just brings you joy. What's the one thing you're most proud of?
I mean, I have to say, when China Clayton joined our program, that felt pretty amazing. China's famously supported Michelle Obama for about 12 years. I was definitely nervous for that one. I really wanted to get that right. And so it ended up being, I think, a 2-part episode. And you can actually tell if you listen
It
to the
was.
first part. Yeah, the first part was like, okay, Jessica, pull it together. Like I could tell I was nervous, but then when I listened to the second, I can tell. But when I listened to the second part, it's like I was in my groove at that point, and I felt like that's where it got better. But that's because I had to kind of work through the nerves. But yeah, I mean, that one was really just some of the things that she shared about her life and kind of the mentorship of Mrs. Obama and how that really helped her to kind of be more, to really own herself and who she is. And it was just a really wonderful story of, I think, progression and self-actualization and really coming into your own. And now here's a clip from our episode with China Clayton, former executive assistant to Michelle Obama.
I see mentorship as an opportunity to invest in yourself or in someone else. Being a mentor affords you the chance to pay it forward, right? By imparting what you know or have learned, so that people aren't stifled by the same things that stifled you along the way. And so my mom prepared me for life's obstacles. And I think, Mrs. Obama was there to guide me through navigating them. They would both give me, career advice and, of course, personal matters too. But they really helped me shift my mindset and recognize the value that I bring to the table. Because when you're the only in a lot of spaces, whether that's the only woman, the only person of color, the only person your age, it is so easy to think that you don't belong. And if you aren't used to seeing someone who looks like you in these spaces and doing prominent things, it can almost become second nature to just feel that way.
That one stands out, as does Libby Moore's episode, who supported Oprah. Like so many heartfelt kind of just really feeling that the idea of manifestation and, like just the way that she's conducted her career in such a mindful, spiritual, present kind of a way is just really wonderful. Now let's take a listen to a snippet from my conversation with Libby Moore, former chief of staff to Oprah Winfrey.
I believe that even people, which is very rare, it's very rare that there's people that say, I believe in nothing. Some people will say, like, I think there's something, but I don't know what to call it, That's what I'm interested in. Like, it's an energy, it's an energy. And if you are just purely living from your brain and your ego, there's just this whole component of your life that you are missing that will help you live a more fulfilling life. And I mean more fulfilling: partnership, family life, business life, creative life, inspiration. And for me, it's really narrowing it down to like the deep breath, slow exhales. I almost don't even use the term meditate, because some people are turned off by that. They're like, I tried it, but I can't make my mind quiet. And it's not even about that. It's just like, bring it back to the breath to calm you and clear your mind and get realigned in your higher consciousness and your inner wisdom, whatever you want to call it, because we're all arguing over what to call it and missing the power of it. Because when you tap into that higher consciousness and that inner wisdom, that is where every single answer, solution, creativity, inspiration lies. And that's where I believe that inventors, creators, artists, musicians, Adele, that singing voice is coming through her. I don't know. She just popped in. So that's a great example of it. That creative force field coming through this human body.
And actually, I had the pleasure of meeting Libby. I went out to New York not long after we recorded, and I was with my daughter and my best friend, and Libby and all three of us joined and had coffee together and croissant and hung out with Libby and walked around her neighborhood.
Just hanging out with Libby more.
Just hanging out with Libby. And she's as cool as she seems, like she's just this generous, beautiful, wonderful person. So like when you talk about things that I didn't expect, hello, serendipity. Like, I didn't think that that would be things that would come of this, right? Never would have imagined that. But I think what I've discovered is that the world is smaller than you think it is. And not all people, right? There are people who love their ivory towers and love their walls and all that. But surprisingly, the world can be smaller than you think it is when you reach out in integrity, in appreciation, with, I think, sincerity. I've been pretty blown away by how accessible and receptive people are. I'll give you another example. We haven't aired this episode yet. It's coming. But she's a public figure, and she started her career as an assistant and then has gone into other things. But we wanted to feature her, and we reached out to her. We tried to go through like the proper channels. Like, she has a publicist, she has an agent, she has all of these people. And so we went through those channels. Hey, we'd love to feature her, la, 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 and got zero response. No, nothing, just crickets.
She needs
made
an
telephone
assistant.
calls. Made telephone calls. She does. Made telephone calls to these people, these agents, whatever. Zero response. And so finally, it was like, well, let's just reach out to her directly. Like, if the proper channels aren't working, then let's just go through the back door. And so we did. And again, like, we reached out authentically. This is our platform. This is why we think our audience would love to hear from you. This is why you're an inspiration to our audience. Your story is amazing. Just all of the things which are 100% true. And she was incredibly generous, got back right away and said, absolutely, I would love to be on the program.
I need to know who this person is.
You will know soon. You'll know very soon. But
teaser, everybody, there's a teaser.
Keep listening.
If this comes out before that one, I don't know.
Right? Yeah, no, this will come out before that one, but it'll.
Okay, well, there we go.
Know. And it's just, again, it's like, I think that the world, sometimes it's amazing. I see this reiterated in multiple areas of my life where, I've reached out and fostered connections and things that kind of on the surface might seem inaccessible, but have delighted me by how they've actually come back in a very approachable way. So I think that right there is just a lesson too, an unexpected lesson of being part of this program.
China Clayton was discussing something that gave me goosebumps. This is a goosebump moment. I had read Michelle Obama's first book, and she said something in there that I have on an Apple Note that I read almost every day. And it says, you have to be twice as good to get half as far.
Yeah.
In China, when you guys were talking, she said that, but she didn't say it exactly as Michelle had said it, but she said, you have to be twice as good. And it gives me goosebumps now because I literally have that quote on my Apple Notes and I read it every day.
And now here's a clip from our episode with China Clayton, former executive assistant to Michelle Obama.
I knew that we had to get it right? That there was no room for error because, like you said, eyes were on us, but in a way that they had never been before. And if there were ever going to be another Black person in the highest office of the land, this Black man had to get it as close to perfect as possible. Mm-hmm. And so striving for perfection just became even more so of my norm. Being Black, we're always taught to strive for perfection or be twice as good, or you have to be twice as good. And so, working in the White House under the first African-American administration, it just always pushed me to work as hard as I could.
And to hear her say that out loud when she was talking to you was pretty incredible, because I think a lot of assistants feel that way, because we do feel like we're just EAs sometimes. And it's so hard to get through and get past that and see where our value is. And so to listen to those voices and the things that they've done, and to know that China Clayton and Michelle Obama felt that same way at one point. And then to see where they are today and they got through that is a beautiful thing. And it's so much more than just, let's talk about how to, run an executive calendar today, everybody. It's so much deeper. So
Yeah.
for especially for people
Yeah.
who don't enjoy small talk, which I'm one of
Right.
those people, I like to hear those deeper conversations about things like that
Yeah.
that you can apply to your life.
Yeah. There's a lot of standouts in that episode for me, but I think the one that I really love as well is she makes, and I can't exactly remember how it goes, but China makes some reference to her hair. And I think she
Oh,
said something along
yes.
the lines of like, I'm going to have braids or I won't have braids. I forget. But in any case, she
Yep.
was like, well, is that going to be okay if I go to this, presidential event with my braids or whatever it was? And Mrs. Obama said something along the lines of, I didn't realize that your hair defined your professionalism or something to that point, which I always thought was just so validating,
Mm-hmm.
And now here's a clip from our episode with China Clayton, former executive assistant to Michelle Obama.
There was also a moment where I remember just before her becoming book tour, I was going back and forth about what I wanted to do with my hair. And I told her, I was like, I want to get a protective style. I want to get faux locks. And so essentially just something that was easy to maintain, something that, I'm not having to put heat on my hair every day, not having to spend so much time dealing with hair just because, this was a fast moving tour. And I told her, I was just like, but it's not professional enough. And she stopped me. She stopped me dead in my tracks. And she's like, says who? And I'm like, society, the workplace. Like, I know I've heard this, right? And she goes, your hair does not dictate your level of professionalism. You do. And she's like, don't ever let someone tell you your hair isn't professional. She's like, I'm your boss. And if somebody's got a problem with it, you tell them to take it up with me. And in that moment, it hit me. It's just like, yeah, there's another way to be in this world other than what the world dictates to you.
Did Clayton also have a father who was in prison?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she shared that.
And I feel like she had spoke to Michelle about that as well. And Michelle's response was very real and honest and wonderful of everybody has somebody that they know that's in prison. We're all human. We're all normal people. And yeah, it's very incredible.
You mentioned a story or an anecdote about, how you felt a need to divulge to Mrs. Obama that your father was in prison. And that your impetus for that was that you just wanted to avoid, anything coming out that could possibly cast shade on them in any way, shape, or form. And so you sat down and had that discussion with her, and you were really nervous about it and trepidatious. And I remember you say she was basically like, okay, is that it? Like, is there anything more?
Seriously, she's just like, who doesn't know somebody who's gone to prison? Like, stop it. And I was just like, oh, really? You think until somebody's able to just, put that kind of perspective on it, you really do think you're in these things alone and you are the only one going through these experiences. And it's just like, no, the more we're able, which is why, I really applaud Mrs. Obama for always encouraging people to share their stories, because the more you share, the more you hear, oh, I'm not alone in this. Oh, I'm not the only person. Oh, we have shared experiences, And that helps to bring you closer together to people. That helps to have more empathy towards people.
For me, it's like, embrace who you are, embrace all of it, embrace your past, you can't fight who you are, so embrace it and walk with it, own it, And I think that was like one of the biggest lessons of her episode for me.
To get back to the laughter part of things, I am curious, because you can tell when you're interviewing people that some of them are more serious, very straight-laced. Some of them are very funny. Some of them, like sometimes I can hear you smiling. I can just hear you smiling. Is there a certain guest that you've had that you just laughed the entire time?
Kristen Beetham is one of the most hilarious people, period, end of story. She's ridiculous. She's so brilliant, because I think to be that funny and that quick, you have to be brilliant. She's absolutely she's one of the most well-read people I know. She is incredibly thoughtful. She is hyper quick-witted. I mean, it's like, and also like just kind of like really slapsticky and ridiculous. And so she did an episode for us. She was one of the earliest episodes. I think hers was about surviving like the startup life and like running at brick walls and all of these kinds of things. And it's been almost 6 years since we recorded that, so I can't fully remember it. But she just in general is one of the wittiest people, period. End of story. And now a clip from my conversation with the hilarious Kristen Beetham, former executive assistant to executives at Elf, Jewel, and Livefire.
You know, when I look at myself 15 years ago, what I thought I was good at, I was not good at all. You know, I really wasn't. I wanted, if in an interview, I'd be like, oh my God, I love organizing. I love it. Right. I really don't. Yeah. I really don't. I'm very good at being strategic. I'm very good at thinking things through, like doing things on the fly. But I'm like, there will be no math in my job. It just won't happen. It's not part of it. It's just that, and it's not what I'm good at, because I'm good at a lot of other things, and I'm fine to say that I'm not good at certain ones. Okay. So I think that is something you have to really know what you like and what you're good at, what comes naturally, what you don't have to work hard at, and be honest with yourself. I think really ultimately it comes to like, having integrity and really knowing what your your identity is and like what who you are, right? Because otherwise you're just going to be, pardon my language, but you're just going to be bullshitting. You've sat through interviews and everybody's like, when you ask the question like, what could you do better, and they're like, I don't know. Whenever I think I could do something better, I just make it a point to do it better. I'm like, well, come on. You know what mine is? You know what I would like to do better? Not eat carbs. That's it. That's what I say in any interview. They're like, what do you struggle with? I'm like, eating carbs. Carbohydrates. My coworker said that. She's like, I'm going to say that in any upcoming interview in my life. What do you struggle with? Carbs, excess sugar.
Have you ever been recognized out in public? Fangirl moment with someone that's not me.
Okay, this is a really cool story. And actually, let me just preface this by saying, if this person is listening, please follow up with us, because we want to know who you are, want to know what your name is. So I will tell the story and then this will make sense. But I was in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago. Our team was there for some client things, and there was an event that we were all gathered for, and a couple of us were in the restroom, and you know how it is when women go into the restroom and just talk. That's the best catching up on whatever. And so I'm running my mouth about, I don't even know what. I think I was talking about collagen supplements, because I just learned that collagen in the form that everybody takes it, like this hydrolyzed collagen and the blah, 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 that you mix in with the natural flavors and all that, whatever, is actually absolute BS. And it's not actually doing anything to bolster your skin, your nails, your hair, all the things that we're doing it for.
It's true.
And so instead I was talking about there's other ways that you can support collagen production in your body that aren't taking the collagen. And so I'm like going on and on and on, because I'm really excited about this incredible knowledge that I've just come into. So I'm telling my team, we're talking about it. And I see this woman
in the bathroom.
Obviously in the bathroom. And in the public bathroom with lots of other people around. I'm just running my mouth, and this woman is washing her hands, and I kind of like see her like kind of like look like side-eyeing me, and I'm like, oh, she's like listening hard, like she's really interested in collagen. And so I asked her, I go, are you interested in, I was like, do you take collagen? Are you also wondering about these collagen? Because if you're taking collagen, you're wasting your money. So we had this whole conversation about collagen, and she looks at me and she's like, I'm actually really don't care about collagen. And she goes, do you have a podcast? And I was like, well, whoa, that was kind of a very specific question. And I looked at her and I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And she goes, I know your voice.
Wow, that's so cool.
It was crazy. And she goes, are you, Jessica, do you have reach? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, oh my gosh, I have been a devoted listener for years. She's like, I literally listen to you everywhere. I've heard you in the bathroom. I've heard you in the car. I've heard you in the shower. I've heard you here. I've heard you there. And I would like, we were all, the three of us, there were three of us in the bathroom. We were just sitting there dumbfounded, like absolutely dumbfounded.
Laughing.
It was like hilarious because she didn't recognize the way that I look. She recognized my voice.
But your voice
crazy.
in that bathroom, I bet, sounded amazing.
Hopefully the echoing was
bathroom.
working.
Yeah, the bathroom sound effects.
Bathroom acoustics. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a really amazing moment. And then afterwards, like, we're kicking ourselves because she goes on to say like how listening really helped her elevate. It helped her land this amazing job. She's supporting the managing director of a venture capital firm. She never would have gotten there had she not like heard the lingo and heard how to position herself and how to talk the talk and what to say. And so she was like thriving in her career. And she was basically saying, I credit a large part of it to the program. And the three of us are sitting here, like, we all had temporary amnesia because how is it that three professional recruiters all forgot to ask her name? It was just like, are you kidding me? Right
That's
now?
amazing.
This is literally our job.
Okay.
Our job is to make connections. So if she's listening, please reach out. Please reach out. Please connect and tell us who you are, and maybe we'll have you on the program so you can talk about your experience.
That would be incredible. I think that when you have a podcast and you're speaking one-on-one with people like this, do you sometimes feel like you forget that 360,000 people are going to hear this or possibly hear this? Does that ever occur to you when you're speaking to the guests or working on anything, or does it really feel like an intimate conversation to you?
It really feels intimate because it actually is. I mean, it's typically in the beginning years, it was me, Haley, and Mario, and whoever guests we had in the studio. And it was, I don't know if anybody's spent time in a recording studio. It was my first time going into a recording studio. It's basically like egg carton walls, you know, with those like insulated, like styrofoamy things. And it's like you're in a cocoon. It's like a womb, you know, and it's just you and your guest. And Haley was there and Mario was in the back. And we would just be like, you know, and so it felt extremely intimate. And we were in the same physical space. And it was like, it was electric, but it was very personal. And so it always felt very personal. And then Haley and I would go and we would be like, we're hungry. Let's go to Molinari Delicatessen because the studio's in North Beach for those that live in San Francisco. So we would go and get like a big old Italian delicious sandwich. And that was like our tradition. It was great. I loved it. And these days it's mostly recorded remotely, but it still feels super intimate because I'm typically just in my home office and they're wherever they are. And it feels very one-on-one, and
it really does. It feels like that to me.
Yeah. And I always like, because sometimes guests are nervous. Of course, it makes sense that people are nervous. And
120,000%.
Right? But it's like, just pretend like, I literally will say, it's like we're at a cafe and we're just hanging and you're telling me about whatever, this date you went on, and we're just having some coffee and shooting the breeze. And I've always hoped that it would be very conversational and casual. I think the best conversations have been that way. So, yeah.
As a fan, I can confirm they are. Just also because I do listen to a lot of podcasts throughout the day, and I have heard a lot of executive assistant podcasts that focus on the same similar topics and things like that. But it doesn't have that intimacy that I feel when I listen to it. But I've always been curious if you felt that way as well. As a fan, you know, I'm like, I wonder what's going through Jessica's mind when she is interviewing this person for blah, 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 blah. And to know that it feels that way to you as well, I think resonates with me as a listener. And to just be sitting here talking to you is really strange, because I've imagined being a complete wreck this entire time. And I feel very comfortable right now. So I'm happy about that. But it's weird to have heard Jessica Vann in my ear for at least 5 years. I didn't start 6 years ago, but it was before the pandemic. I've been a listener for at least 5 years. And to have those moments, and this is something I kind of wanted to touch on as well. I'm curious if there were lows. I want to know about the lows and how you got through them with the podcast. And I can imagine when they might have been, but to hear from your words, what were those lows and how did you get through them?
On a personal level, there were definitely some critics that, at the time I was like, God, that hurts. That sucks,
Mm-hmm.
And if you go through our reviews in the early days, you'll see it. You'll see these reviews of people going, this show had so much potential. If only that host wasn't so annoying. Or, that host she always interrupts, and she cuts people off, and she says all the time, and all of these, or she's too much of an active listener. And I remember feeling really wounded at the time of just being like, God, for real? Like, I was so offended. And here you are, like, you're doing all this work, you're putting all this into it, you're churning, and you have your other actual job to be doing, and this is like your side project. And I felt really defeated. And of course, these reviews, they live in infamy, right? Like, they don't ever go away.
Yes.
They're there. And now, having some distance on it, I have to say, I actually thank whoever that was that put those criticisms in, because it made me reflect on how I was as a host. And you know what? I did, of course, going back and re-listen, and she or he was absolutely right. I did have a tendency to go, Amy, yeah,
I'm doing it too.
And so, had that person not been so clear and direct with their feedback, I don't think I ever would have reflected on that communication style, pattern, whatever that I had. And so I actually really do appreciate that. It was hard in the moment, but it became a catalyst for growth. So that was a low, but ultimately a high, I think. And I still am like a very enthusiastic communicator. I've been told that I'm a lot. I've been told that can be very extra. Fine. So
Me too.
So I have to, like, consciously try to not do that. And I think I've gotten better. I'm not perfect at it, but I think I've gotten somewhat better. And I try to just be more mindful and aware of that flaw of mine. So that was a low, but I think the pandemic was a hard time for everybody. It was hard for us. If you look at our pandemic season, we did things around, layoffs and how to, kind of keep the faith. And I mean, as you recall, Amy, like everybody was in free fall. It was just like rifts left and right, and people feeling deeply, deeply, deeply destabilized economically, socially. Where is my value? Where is my worth? How am I going to pay for my bills? Am I going to be able to recover from this? I mean, it was a really horrific time. And so we did episodes that talked about that. We also, trying to energize people. Executive assistants at the time, they were all doing everything remote, right? So every event they were doing was remote. Every meeting was remote. People were pulling their hair out. Like, I don't know how to plan a SKO as a remote event. And so we brought in a really incredible woman named Heather Keenan, who runs an event company, destination management company called Key Events. And we brought her on, and she also did a 2-part episode on how to think about and approach event planning as a virtual endeavor. And I think her episodes were among the very best. Oh, by the way, she is hilarious. So Heather Keenan and Kristen Beetham, 2 of the absolute funniest humans, period. And they're both super deadpan, super sarcastic, surly, saucy. I love their sense of humor. But Heather had me laughing out loud. She's an amazing wit and intellect as well. Let's jump to a snippet from our episode with Heather Keenan, CEO of Key Events. So what advice does your team have, and yourself, around the technology requirements and thinking about bandwidth and things like that?
So this isn't your ballroom with your AV crew. This is Mario, who's actually right here behind the glass. That's who you need. You need someone who understands studio sound, someone who understands studio lighting, someone who understands the vision of a backdrop, and someone who understands messaging. Messaging is extraordinarily important because you have to have it visually, you have to have it verbally, and then you have to reinforce it in writing. So those are the elements that are really important. It's a different animal. This is not.
Yep.
You know what we say is that there's a couple different ways to do a virtual event. One is the Zoom, which is effective for a small meeting or something like that, or
Right.
or a networking meeting that's effective-ish. And then we have the ballroom with a virtual element, and then we have 100% virtual. And the 100% virtual is a different animal than the other two. This has to be specific about studio, specific about sound, specific about visuals. And that is a different animal than doing a virtual event.
I would love to have the listeners who are remote EAs to listen to those podcasts, to go back in those episodes and re-listen to all of them, because I am a remote EA and I have been now for quite some time. So when the pandemic happened, to me, some of it was completely normal. And then a lot of it had completely changed, because while I do work remote, my team was never remote. I was working with an executive team who was fully in person. And so to then have to figure out the same things as a remote EA, how to do things that in-person EAs were also having to do. But the skills and the things that you guys highlighted through the pandemic about how to do those things remotely still resonates today, because so many things are still remote.
Yeah,
And
they are.
you know, and there's so much you can do as a remote EA. You can do so much when you're not in person, because you have more time, you have more energy, especially if you have a really strong skill set. And those episodes hit so many marks, and very inspiring stuff and hilarious.
So what I would add to that, and I agree, I think it's a great re-listen to revisit some of those episodes, just in terms of how to augment your skill set and how to support effectively remotely. And like, to your point, some people are fully remote. A lot of people, I would say most people, are hybrid. So they might be 4 days on site, 1 day remote, or 3-2 or whatever. But I think another standout from that time is LJ Cohen. So Lisa Cohen, but she goes by LJ. She talked about setting herself up as a remote assistant. And she was actually doing it way before it was cool, right? It was well before the pandemic, well before that whole kind of movement happened. Here's a moment from my conversation with LJ Cohen, executive assistant at Uncork Capital, talking about how to set yourself up successfully as a remote assistant.
I think how much I enjoy the alone time to just get work done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hadn't
honest.
realized. Yeah, I hadn't realized how much I just wanted to get more spreadsheets done, to get efficiencies done, to clean up the calendar, to clean up the G-Docs, I just love to have things efficient and organized. And the nice thing about this particular role is that's exactly what's needed.
Yeah.
And so whether it's going from an office to a remote role or just switching roles, really knowing what it is you love to do, I have a smile on my face every single day, because day in and day out, I'm working on exactly what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
You just feel successful all day long because what you have to give is what's needed most at that particular role.
I know that episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was brilliant also because it was crazy how we recorded that before the pandemic, and it ended up becoming so incredibly vital and such a great resource. But she's wrote the book on how to support remotely, how to set yourself up effectively, how to still be deeply embedded. So definitely that's a good listen.
It's a different animal. And then also, a lot of remote assistants, we do travel and then spend some time with our team in person as well. And which is like, there's so much nuance. There's so much nuance that comes into play. And the Reach podcast really, really hits so many marks in so many different ways through all the things that have happened in the past 6 years. And there is one final question that I'm so excited to ask, because you get to ask the final question to your guests every time. And I always get so excited to hear the answer, even though the answer most of the time is exactly the same thing, which was hilarious when you were interviewing the actual assistant of Michelle Obama and Oprah, because the majority of people say that's who they want to support.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun for you to ask them that. And I think Jesus was probably my favorite answer.
That was Heather. When I said Heather Keenan's hilarious,
yes.
I die
She
every
said
time.
Jesus.
I go, her question was, if you could plan an event for anybody in the world, because she's the world's most famous event planner, she goes, it would have to be the Last Supper. She's like, Judas, where's Judas? Has anybody seen Judas?
And then but to nail that, yeah.
Let's jump to a snippet from our episode with Heather Keenan, CEO of Key Events. We wanted to ask you if you could throw an event for anyone in the world, either living or dead, whatever, doesn't matter, who would it be and why?
So the immediate thing that came into my mind when I read this question was, oh man, I got to do the Last Supper.
Oh,
right.
Heather, I love it.
I'm not particularly religious. I'm spiritual.
Love that.
But at the same time, can you imagine being there for that dinner?
No.
Well, first of all, look what it looks like, right? I'm in this Roman castle in the middle, right? And then what are they eating? And then what are they talking about? And then
what's the icebreaker?
Who's drinking too much and where is that Judas, right? God, round up that Judas. Where is he? He's got to get to this dinner. So there's a really good example.
She's hilarious. Yeah. I love her.
So for you, you've had some pretty incredible guests on your show. Who would be your ultimate person that you would interview and be your guest?
Okay, this is really hard, you guys. This is like, I realize now what a difficult question this is, because you're like, I can't blow my one shot,
This is it. This is it. After 6 years, you're in the hot seat.
So this is probably, well, one, it's definitely an answer we haven't heard. And there's so many people that I would be interested in talking to, but okay, I'm going to go with the first thing that popped into my head, because, right, that's what you're supposed to do. So there is he's deceased. Dr. Sebi, do you know him? He was from Honduras.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, look him up. So he was from Honduras. He was like this incredible self-taught healer, naturopath, like a medicine man, right? Like he knew all of the healing properties, all of the plants. Like it was said that he could basically cure or heal anything. He was the guy that popularized the whole green algae, blue algae, like eating that, digesting that. I think after he died, his children, and he has like disciples and people like that. But I'm just at this point in my life, very interested in alternative medicines, practices. I am pretty cynical about the mainstream sources of health.
Can we have a podcast about that? Because I would love to talk about that.
I could go off on that. Yeah, I could go off for a long time. I could talk about toothpaste for a long time.
I'm ready.
Fluoride, all of it. But this man was a genius, and he died under somewhat suspect circumstances. But I think like there's such a knowledge base there. Like if I didn't have my job to do in my career, I would probably go spend time like in the Amazon with like a curandera or something and like learn all of the medicinal wisdom and just learn plants and how to extract them and how to use them. I was in Brazil last year and I went to the botanical garden in Rio, and it blew me away because I was walking around and just this small little plot, just this little tiny sample of the Amazon had cures for like almost everything you could imagine. It was like, oh, well, take this plant if you're having menopause, take this plant for diabetes, take this plant for cholesterol, take this plant for, depression. I mean, it was just like, it blew me away how little we actually understand and know. And so somebody like him, I would love to just be in his presence, in his brain.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I think we should start another podcast about alternative medicines. Let's do it with all the time that we have.
All the time that we have. Yeah.
Is there anything else that, in a commemorative episode like this, 100, anything else that a funny joke or just something you've always wanted to share with your audience? Anything else that you want to say to the 360,000 people that you've been talking to for 6 years?
I would just like to, first and foremost, once again, thank our guests, because it's through their generosity, the generosity of their time, the generosity of being willing to share their experiences and expertise. We would not have a program were it not for them. And I see us really as just more of the facilitator of bringing these people together, finding them, and creating kind of a platform. Like that's really been our role in this. But really, I mean, they're the experts here. They're the ones that have offered themselves for the benefit of this entire community. So I really want to acknowledge and thank all of those people. And then to your point, Amy, like we had a lot of repeat people, like the Tanya Benvenutos of the world, where I'm like, just
Tanya.
come back. Just
Come on.
What else do you have to share with us? I think she's been on 3 times.
Always have fun.
Yeah. And, Julia Quijano has been on as well 3 times. And we actually, Julia and I created we created 2 e-learning courses based upon our conversations. And she also does coaching as a adjunct service that Maven provides. So like there's certain people that had so much resonance and brought so much to the program that we had them on multiple times. So again, I want to thank everybody that's shared of themselves in creating this podcast, but I also want to thank our listeners who have tuned in loyally, faithfully, been supportive, shown up for themselves, shown up for us. Like all of please do reach out and send those accolades or the thoughts, even if it's the criticisms, because like, as I pointed out, those help too. But, I read those, I receive those. We look for those reviews, like they mean a lot to us. And sometimes, like to your point, Amy, like sometimes you're like, God, like, is there anybody out there? Like we can see the listener stats, we can see how many people listen per episode, all that kind of stuff. But that's not the same as receiving a note from someone like yourself. You were one of those people who wrote in and was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. And that feels so good. That's so energizing because for the most part, we're pretty siloed. We're not getting direct feedback from our audience. That's why running into that woman, mystery woman, please reach out in the bathroom, was just like such an amazing moment. Like, is this what Beyonce feels like every day of her life?
You're
so
basically
nice.
Beyonce. You're Beyonce.
Basically, yeah. My son actually asked me, my son is 9, so this says a lot about what he asked me this, but he goes, Mom, are you like famous? I was like, I am definitely not famous. But
you're a very important person.
It was cute, so, but that feedback is really energizing and it does keep us going. And it's nice to know that we're making an impact and that the program is making an impact. And if you have ideas and things that we haven't featured or guests that you want us to try to reach out to, let us know.
Well, maybe we should go there. What's the roadmap? What's to come?
Of who's on? Well,
yeah,
Shay
what do we have to look? I know.
No,
you don't have to give that away.
I am not about to face
Sorry, Shay.
Yeah, I don't want to be admonished for anything. But let me
Any
tell you,
other teasers?
Shay is carrying the torch in a major way. She has an incredible roster of people that she's both confirmed, but also ones that we're trying to get. I'm gonna put it out there. We really want Ben and Jerry's on the program. We want somebody from their team on the program. So we do not have that confirmed. If anyone has a leg into Ben and Jerry's and their team, we really, really want to feature their leadership story and how they exemplify what it means to really have a value-driven organization and corporate like courage and all of these things. So we would love to have Ben and Jerry's. I'm trying to manifest that. But yeah, we have some amazing people that we've already recorded that I'm super excited to be releasing in the next several episodes. You'll see what I'm talking about, but can't say more than that.
That's great. That's okay. I think that was a good teaser. And if maybe I can talk to some of our salespeople and see if they know the brands and, get someone on the inside there.
Yeah, please.
Because we work with a lot of brands.
We've been trying. We haven't heard back yet, but we are trying. So with Ben and Jerry's. Yeah.
Come on, Ben and
Amy,
Jerry's.
you did so great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
You're such a natural host. I felt like this was a fun experience for me. And I think you did an amazing job of carrying the mantle and being in the interviewer seat. So thank you for agreeing to do this. And finally, to close out this commemorative episode, a special message from our one and only, very own Haley Garrison, former marketing and brand manager at Maven Recruiting Group, who helped launch Reach and has been the backbone of this program.
Hi, Reach listeners. Haley Garrison here, former brand and content marketing manager at Maven. I am excited to hop on and congratulate you all on 100 episodes of Reach. What an amazing accomplishment since we launched the show in 2018. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank all of you, our listeners and followers over the years who have supported us and encouraged us and given us constructive feedback and guest recommendations and topic ideas. This program would not be what it is today without all of you. So thank you for all that you have done to support us. I also thought that it would be fun to share a little bit of a behind the scenes look into what went into creating our program. I'm excited to answer a few questions that Jessica has for me. Number one, how did you create Reach? So at Maven, our goal has always been to advocate for and to champion the executive assistant career path. And we had the pleasure of hearing so many of our candidates' incredible stories and experiences in their work as EAs. And we thought that it would be really beneficial to share those stories and experiences with other administrative and executive support professionals. We also knew that there was a need in this space for community, and I'll never forget coming up with the name Reach. We went into Jessica's office, a few of us, and had a brainstorming session where we threw on some music and we grabbed some expo pens and we just tried to write down every word that came to mind when we think about who an executive assistant is, who a Reach listener would be. And at the time we didn't know that it would be called Reach, but that was the word that we landed on, and we loved that it had EA in the word itself. So that's how we came up with Reach. And then from there it was, what is our artwork going to look like? What is our music going to sound like? We wanted something unique and new. We didn't just want stock music. So we actually hired a musician to create our intro and our outro music, which was so much fun. The first episode we recorded is actually not the first episode that we released. Our first episode that we ever recorded was with Leah Ballard, the former Disney princess who went on to support Max Levchin. And I'll never forget riding in an Uber with Jessica to a sound studio in downtown San Francisco, and we recorded our first episode not knowing what it would be like, what it would sound like. We did get some feedback and we quickly implemented that. It was not saying and here I am doing it. What is your favorite episode of Reach? This is like asking who my favorite child is, which is impossible to do. There is one episode that I do hold near and dear to my heart for a few reasons. One, it was landing a really big guest who I didn't know if she would respond back to me, but she did. Her name is Anne Hyatt, and she supported Eric Schmidt of Google and Jeff Bezos of Amazon. and she was located in Spain, so it was a little bit of a logistical challenge to figure out recording with time zones. And it was also really special, one, because she is so polished, so incredible, an amazing speaker. And I remember listening to the episode at home. I turned around and my almost 1-year-old took his first steps. So he was even motivated by Anne Hyatt, who couldn't be. Did you reach out to big name guests such as Anne Hyatt, Grant, who supported Serena Williams, China, who supported Michelle Obama? How did you make those connections? Honestly, I just went for it. As I mentioned earlier, I had 0 podcasting experience, but I was so motivated by all of you who were supporting us and wanting more. And I just thought, dream big, take the shot, reach out to these people. And thankfully, they said yes and were willing to share their stories with all of us, which I am so grateful for. So, dream big, go for it. I have since moved on to being a full-time mom, and I like to say that before kids, Reach was my work baby. Seriously, it was my biggest project. I care so deeply about it still to this day. I will always be the #1 fan, and I just wanted to let you know that I am cheering you all on from afar, and I can't wait to see what this podcast continues to be. Thank you all for letting me be a part of it.
Reach is brought to you by Maven Recruiting Group, who specializes in placing executive assistants and support staff to the Bay Area's most prominent executives and companies. If you've enjoyed being part of our podcast community and are interested in becoming part of our candidate community, we're currently hiring for roles in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and Los Angeles. You can visit us at www.mavenrec.com to see some of the roles we're currently working on and to submit your resume.